Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome to Chalkcast episode number 36. This is an extra special episode because we have Chrome, and it's going to be an absolute banger here today. We have, there's a lot of stuff to discuss. Actually, there's been a bunch of transfers. There's been a bunch of, a lot of stuff going on in this little, between split area of the RLCS season. But the biggest thing, and what everybody's wondering is, what's Chrome up to?
What's up, guys? I didn't know if I was taking the lead there.
Well, no, I'll lead you in. I'll handball it off. Look, obviously, firstly, it's fantastic to be back. We had a few weeks off there. We had 4 weeks. Yeah. I know we were getting tagged. We saw the comments. We saw the mentions. We saw the Twitter. We saw the Twitch chat. Everyone saying, "Where's Chalked?" All of these transfer rumors were coming out, and every single one we're getting tagged in them. You need to talk about this. Go live. Well, here we are. We've made it. We're back in business, back to the weekly shows. It is great to be here. And as we said, Chrome is joining us. I think it's your first time on Chalked, isn't it? It's your first?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. There you go. He's making
his debut. For it, because now you're not currently coaching any team.
Non-PR.
So you can spill the beans on everything. Like no PR necessary.
To an extent, right? To an extent.
No bias.
Don't want to completely burn bridges.
Right? Well, I don't know. Burning bridges is fun sometimes. So.
Well, I don't even know what we do here, but we burn many bridges. No, Chrome. Look, for those that don't know, obviously you previously Space Station Gaming coach for the longest of times over there, and ever so recently have parted ways with the Space Station Gaming organization, with the team, and you are as good as I guess you'd say a free agent, perhaps looking for your next venture, hopefully into the coaching scene. But yeah, what are you up to right now, and what talk us through the Space Station situation, and what you're up to now, what you're looking to do next.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the Space Station thing, it's just, for me, I just didn't see eye to eye with the direction of the team. It felt like we weren't really progressing to build a championship-winning roster. I felt like the actual process of scrims and everything was just always a step backwards. I felt like we weren't ever really improving. It just seems like the group of players just didn't really want to play with each other, and then a lot of other factors that I don't want to get into. But yeah, it's just like, at first it was good, but then one bad result went downhill, and then it was just impossible to build up. And then got to a point where one player wanted to leave and just let him go, and that was that. And just didn't agree with the mindset of some of the players on the team and the organization, and it was best to just mutually depart.
How long were you with SSG?
For almost 4 years. I signed in October. I signed in October of 2019, but I was actually working with them prior for months before I actually signed with them, when it was Arsenal, AXB, and Cypical when they first formed.
That was pre-pandemic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, season 8.
Right after
Worlds. You were coaching them, that roster. That's crazy.
So you were with Arsenal for 4 years as well?
Yeah, almost, yeah.
Man.
It's crazy to think.
So Arsenal grow up.
Yeah.
So what's next for Chrome, or what are you what are you up to at the moment? If you before we get to what's next, what have you been doing?
Surprisingly, a whole lot of nothing. I mean,
not much.
I did field a bunch of rosters, but offers to join certain teams, but I kindly declined because for me, a lot of these situations for these orgs, one of them, they don't speak English, and I wouldn't understand what they were saying. And a lot of my coaching, I feel like I'm effective if I can narrow down issues and try to work around them. And if I don't know what the heck is being said, I can't help out. And to the extent I feel like I can, and I won't be able to go on stage with them and really help make those micro adjustments in the moment. And then another team was just they were kind of on the downtrend. They're having a whole bunch of problems, and I didn't want to put myself out there on another sinking ship and try to turn it around, which it's not something, because when I want to coach, I want to build something. I want to start from scratch. So for me, it's right now I'm thinking of just waiting till next season and going from there. And if teams need help at a major, if they need a fifth opinion or Worlds, I mean, I would love to consult and help out.
Yeah,
I didn't want to sign my name to something.
You're trying to maybe do some consulting as a testing the waters kind of thing with various teams.
I just didn't want to sign my name to something and then I don't know, makes me look like an idiot. Yeah, it sucks I'm not gonna be getting a paycheck. Paycheck's nice and all, but I think it would hurt me in the long run.
I mean,
Patience.
4 years it's a long time. Obviously, there was a few different players coming and going. Arsenal sticking around with you as well. Do you think that it's in obviously we'll be talking about transfer rumors in a moment, but just with how like volatile it is right now, like there's not much longevity in rosters in teams in duos. Do you think that like played a big part, like in terms of, I guess, your disconnection a little bit with the team or with, leaving Space Station? Do you think it's more like this is just what's going to happen? You spend 4 years at an organization with different players coming and going, but you're going to like start being a little bit, it's going to get a little bit stale, I guess you will. Like players will get less receptive or less responsive to coaching and stuff. Like it's just what's going to happen over time, regardless of what you try and do.
Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, if you're not getting results, things change really quickly. Your environment changes. The work ethic of the team changes. It's just how it is. If you're not performing, there's going to be a lot of discussions, a lot of arguments, a lot of debates, and if it continues to not work out in your favor and you're not winning, some players just eventually lose it and some want to leave. Just how it is.
You teased us a little bit with some information there. Don't want to make you or try and get you to name names. We can't make you do anything. But could we maybe squeeze a language out of you? You said that there's one team wanted you to coach them, but you couldn't speak the language. Can we? Would that be something we could know what language it was, or is that going to make it too obvious?
I think it's pretty obvious what I gave you.
They
speak English. Yeah, it's pretty obvious. I don't know. You can guess a few teams, but it's pretty spot on if you guess right. I don't know.
It's pretty spot on if you guess right.
It could be French, could be Arabic, could be Portuguese.
You hypothetically
Spanish.
say South American languages.
It's not English. That's it's.
Okay.
But
no, somewhere else.
We don't want to put pressure on you. You can keep it close to your chest. We don't want to burn any bridge for you, of course. But okay, do you want to talk about the one of the big transfers that you?
Let's get into it.
Yeah, so Chrome obviously former coach of SSG now recently, and Daniel is a former player of SSG. You both left at a similar time, actually. I think that they announced his departures pretty close together. SSG got Hawkster in place of Daniel. Daniel went to V1 in place of Torment, who's retired. That's like a big collection of transfers that are all tied together. But Chrome, your thoughts on that? Daniel to V1. What were you expecting? And yeah, what was your initial reaction when you heard about that and when you heard that it was going to go through?
I mean, it was the right move for Daniel, and he just didn't want to be on the team anymore for SSG, and I don't know. It was better off letting him go and let him seek other teams and try some other things and play with one of his best friends, Beast Mode. And I think that roster, they didn't look the greatest in these past two tournaments, but I mean, like I said, it's just off-season tournaments. So it doesn't really necessarily mean anything. That means they still just have to work on something. But I mean, it's exciting. It's exciting to see Daniel play with another star player because he has yet to have played with another star player. He's played with two good players and even another good player that was an up-and-comer, but not a star player like a Beast Mode. So it's exciting to see how that team looks going into the season. And in terms of SSG picking up Hawkster, I mean, I think he's the best fit you could possibly get, right? Because if you look at the talent pool in NA, there's not much of a selection if you think about it compared to like EU. And Hawkster really had a standout performance in the split with Ghost, and that's a very, that's like almost a bubble team in terms of like they, I don't even know if they made every single event, but he looked really good.
And he's been good for a long time as well. He's been around.
He's been really good for a long time. He's always been on a team that's never really been at the top, but he's always been like the star player on said team. So I'm excited to see how he does because he's been putting in the work too. He's been grinding a lot. I know he's been on top of the twos leaderboard. And for me, if you're on top of the twos leaderboard, you kind of not, hold your own, in my opinion.
Wasn't there like, even years ago when Cloud9 were still in the scene, wasn't there like a rumor that Hawkster was like a player they were pursuing back then? And that's like years and years now.
I think so.
He's been at the top for a bit, if that rumor's true. I mean, yeah, he was at the top like back then. It made sense that they'd be pursuing him. So I'm really happy for him. I'm glad he's got a shot on a team where he'll be playing with other good players. So I think that maybe they're a sleeper team. Definitely an underdog to make major, but I'm excited for Hawkster. I think he deserves that. I think he's a good player. Do you think it made sense for Torment to retire, you guys, at this point, like without V1?
Still
I,
fresh.
Not Tommy.
No, tell me.
I think Torment could have played on another good team, but it would have been a team that contends for lands. And I think what he said in his, his response is like he wants to be on a team that, because he's been doing it for so long, since season 1, like even a little bit before that. Like he's been doing it for so long.
Yeah,
hard,
season
it's
1,
hard to
he
grind back to the top.
he didn't make Worlds in season 1, but his team in season 1, like season 1 was actually a 2-split format. It's kind of interesting.
Yep.
And the first split, I can't remember where they went. It didn't go too well for them. Second split, didn't they win? Didn't his team win the second split in NA?
They won the actual league play, I think, but then lost.
Yeah, they won the league play. That's right. Yeah, they didn't get enough in the second split to make it. But yeah, Torment.
That was Lucky Bounce, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I believe
Timothy,
so. Yeah,
Darkfire, and Torment.
Oh my god.
What's
I think Tommy, like, I think he's a smart man. Because I think it's probably the best thing for him to do in his career. Hopefully he sticks. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't think he said anything. He's tweet longer, like what's next for him. But
isn't he straight back into like the closed call or the open call or for some tournament? Like, what was he playing yesterday? He played in the Gamers 8 open qual.
He's a grinder.
Sure.
Like he'll be around. But like whether it's legit, but I don't know. Like when we look at Torment, I know there's people saying he could still, like, he's obviously still a very good player, but. Gee, this next, like, I feel like you can just see this wave of like the next generation of Rocket League sort of just taking over, and it's just, it'd be so hard for him to get back up to where he's been before. Obviously,
so much work, so many hours just trying to double flip reset and free play. It's like, is that really worth it? I don't know if it's worth it anymore. But
it's a lot of individual.
He needs to like work on his retiring mechanics. Like he retires and straight away plays an open qual for a different tournament. That's not how you retire a tournament. But
poor timing as well. Like Turbo and Torment at the same time. Like he didn't get as much publicity. He just did a tweet longer. He deserves better.
His retirement got overshadowed a bit. I'm pretty sure he was like on stream while this happened, and then Turbo retires, and he's just like, oh great, like now nobody's gonna see that I retired.
But he forgot about it apparently because he knew Turbo was going to retire at the LAN or announce the retirement, but he forgot, tweeted out his retirement the same day Turbo was going to retire on stage at the LAN. Then when it happened, he's like, oh yeah, that's the thing. Whoops. So yeah, not the best retiring mechanics. I reckon he should make a comeback just so he can retire better.
Yeah.
Get a real retirement. Maybe that's why he's going to the G8 run. He's trying to.
Hopefully we get a piece on him or something. We get at the next major, maybe we can put something together, because he's one of the GOATs, as we said, been there since season 1. But yeah, as I was saying, like this new wave of Rocket League, and I think we've spoken about V1 in the past, they were sort of just hindered in terms of the top teams. Like every player on the pitch just gets so much value out of their touches. Like when they have time, like they can do something with it. But Torment sort of not always, but like of recent sort of lacked that ability to get like value out of his hits. He had it locked down like Turbo just turned into that sort of can lock it down, with great respect to your current teammate Rizzo, sorry, but he's thank you. Like on the ball you get a little time, you watch like every person on K-Corp what they can do, all individually. It's that new wave of just like have time, get your double, get your flip reset, get your ceiling reset, like it's automatic. Back to the roster moves. I know that this is the big one that Rizzo you mentioned as well. Rise is just roster hopping, team swapping. What is happening with this man who is just he joins Oxygen. This is a peak team. They're gonna dominate. We had Archie and Rise on saying that they just got to wipe the floor at the major. This team is unstoppable, and now they just not even playing together. Like this is crazy.
Yeah, I don't want to start a whole topic on this, but man, I really think that there needs to be one trade window throughout the season, bro. After winter split, one trade window, and like that's it. Because also it forces you to actually make a good decision instead of just be like, well, I only got 2 months with them, so I'm just gonna switch after if it doesn't go well. So it actually makes you think about it. But even then, besides that, it is crazy to me how this Rias has basically been, and like no hate to him, of course, but it's like he started the season on one roster, ends up going to a different one, and now he's finishing the season off with one more roster. So he's been on 3 rosters throughout the entirety.
Watch him leave BDS after Worlds and pick a different team for Gamers 8 right after, and then he just has the full grand slam of like rosters throughout the calendar year. I mean, you can't hate him because he's just looking out for number one, and it is allowed in the format. But yeah, I agree. Like looking at all of this roster craziness, it would give it might give more stability. Definitely would give more stability if there was no transfer window right now in the winter. Like between winter and spring, too close to Worlds, no transfers. Just fall and winter would be the best for consistent rosters and really make teams think about it. But at the same time, this is kind of exciting, right? That Rise on BDS.
It's
so I mean, I don't hate it.
It's
It is-
reviving
it is
a
exciting.
dead team.
Yeah,
Well, not a dead team, but like
Jeez,
a team that was out
brutal,
of
buddy.
contention. Well, like a team that was like they're not close to even
I'm
making
kidding, I'm
majors,
kidding.
and now we're putting them back in top 10 power rankings in the world, which is crazy. First touch, I saw that. Like they haven't done anything yet. We can't just now power rank them automatically.
Yeah.
They
That was
put
on
them
average. That wasn't
online.
that wasn't teammates. That was the whole first touch squad plus their staff, I believe, like the behind the scenes guys as well. They averaged their
power
all top
rankings,
10s
not
into an
predictions.
amalgamation. Usually, like amalgamation top 10s are pretty accurate because everybody's personal biases cancel out and you just end up with a good list. But yeah, they've got BDS at 9, right, CJ?
Yeah,
Right now?
it's current. And this is a
Current.
problem I always have when we do like current top 25 in the world. And teammates put Alpha number 4 and saying, you wait and see. And it's like, well, no, that's not what it's about.
That's not what we're
Even if
doing.
BDS go well, they're not currently the 9th team because they haven't played a game yet. Like, you can't just put them there. Like, it does. It's
I mean,
terrible.
it's Rise, so I see what they're doing.
Yeah.
Rise is definitely an upgrade currently for Extra, who's been playing, very suboptimal compared to what we expect from him. Rise didn't look terrible. In fact, I thought he looked pretty good with Oxygen, but collectively they just didn't put it together. The Joria's playoff curse continues, where as soon as Joria's in a playoff at a major, he loses. So that was a little bit stronger than Rise's, playoff buff, unfortunately. So he's like, I'm out. Joria's playoff nerf is too strong. I'm leaving. But yeah, I think you rank BDS up a little bit because of that. Because yeah, Rise is definitely an upgrade, but too much. Putting them number 9 in the world is a bit too much, I think.
You can't rank them yet. Like, it doesn't matter how well you... Like, they don't have results. I don't know how you can, feasibly do it. Like, they shouldn't be in the system yet. This is the new lineup, if you will. Especially if BDS were already in the top 10 and then they make the move and then it's like, well, you can see where they're going to go. But as a team that's nowhere near the world top 10, make one roster move and all of a sudden everyone's like, yeah, they're top 10 now. But we need to see them play first.
It's disrespectful to South America because I know, Falcons got a number 10, I think, on the first touch ranking right now. So that's cool to see them getting a spot there. But Real One have been beating Falcons recently in MENA, so it's not even clear who the best MENA team is. Obviously, Falcons had a great LAN, but Real One right now could be better than Falcons on LAN, and they're definitely better on LAN in Saudi. They're definitely better online in Saudi right now. They've got three of the last 4 matches they played. Real One beat them. And yeah, I think, also probably just got to auto put like 4 teams from NA above BDS without thinking. And Team Secret, they made 2 top 8s now? A top 4 and a top 8. Like, you got to put them in top 10 in the world if they're making a top 4 and a top 8.
Secret didn't get
Both
top
of the
8.
international events.
They got top 12.
Oh wait, no, they got top 12
reverse
as
swept
Crew.
by
They lost
Crew.
the Crew. That's right. But still, I think, overall, you got to put a SAM team in there because
Nah, I don't
overall
think you-
South
I don't think you
America's too
can.
good.
I don't think you can. They had a pretty easy group. You can argue Rotterdam, but you got to do it again. With
I mean, you can't really blame them though. They lost game 5 to Liquid in an easy group. Like, they almost won the group. They were one game away from winning. So it's not like they got clapped by Liquid. They just got reverse swept by Crew, who underperformed in day 1, and then after that actually played pretty well. Like beat G1, beat Team Secret.
Crew's never beat them. I think they were like 0-7. I think is what the stat line between Secret and Crew. If I'm not mistaken. It could be around there where they never beat them and then they reverse swept them on LAN for the first time.
How many
that's what
of those were with those rosters though? Because the rosters are constantly changing
Good
against
question.
SAM. So like, you can't really look at or I don't know the answer to that. I'm just mentioning.
They
you
just
can't
hadn't
look
beaten
at
them
an
in that
org.
online split. And
They're
then,
0-3 versus them this season.
yeah.
0-2 with the specific rosters
That's
before
not
the
crazy.
third run. So yeah, they lost twice online to that team with those specific rosters. The reason I mentioned that, by the way, for our listeners is that SAM rosters. If we were to sit here and talk about SAM roster moves, we'd be here all night. They change rosters every team changes, like every split. It's like it's impossible to keep up with them. I usually just like wait until the first regional and then see who's ended up on what team. Crew. People underrated them after how poorly they played in day 1. Basically, they're actually not bad at all. They're a pretty solid team. So I
The
don't
SAM
look at that as a
bracket was
terrible
fun.
loss.
I
Yeah, the
enjoyed
SAM bracket's
watching the
cool.
SAM
Cool
versus
story.
But yeah. Anyway, the BDS was like, getting back to the Rise thing. this might be a job for GC, but someone needs to go back to the Rise Archie episode and just the confidence that these boys had in themselves and how they were going to go, and then play like the Benny Hill theme music with how they actually went, and then have the roster moves and all the articles and stuff, because it is so fun.
It's such a weird situation. Like, realistically, how much practice did they have versus everyone else with Rise's situation of like destroying his wrist and then like even cutting
not
it?
a lot in between, like right after they played Regional 3 online. I think Rise had a 3-week off-ish, something like that. But after that, he was playing pretty actively. So
I think it was also it is a pretty normal break, because a lot of times teams do take well, maybe a little bit extended, but teams do take a bit of a break at least after that last regional. But
even the first regional, I swear, like CJ, didn't they have like one a day or something of scrims? It's like that's not normal.
Yeah. I think it was Joris or someone showed their like Google calendar, and it was just one scrim a day. So they weren't really practicing. And as like Nick said, like they obviously had a lot of internal issues, but like the thing is that they obviously were publicly very, very confident in their abilities, and you can talk about Rise having the broken arm and the wrist, the disjointed practice, but clearly that wasn't a massive impact because they made a roster move. So they weren't like, all right, boys, like, obviously this was pretty rough for us because we didn't have good practice. They were like, this is terrible. Like, this is not working out, boys. We're not having fun. Let's make a move. So clearly there was, it wasn't all just the copium about the wrist, I guess you could say. It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows over at Oxygen.
But that's also allowed EXO to join Oxygen. So Quadrant's EXO has joined Oxygen, and tied to that, Quadrant's Cash has joined Moist, which means that Quadrant are no longer a team in the world's running. They've actually picked up a totally different team for this split, and Relating Wave, the third from Quadrant, has no team. Joining actually quite a large group of players from Europe this split who have no team. Those are Relating Wave, Arju, I believe, still has no team in us. Mark by 8, Sizen, Extra, and Astral. So they could all actually come together and make 2 solid teams there. But probably contracts prevent that from happening. Cash joins Moist, Astral's on the bench. EXO joins Oxygen in place of Rise, who's gone to BDS, and that makes Extra a player on the bench as well. It's insane. EU's actually just completely lost the plot, or possibly made the biggest brain moves we'll ever see, and we'll have to wait and find out which. But let's talk about EXO, Oxygen, and Cash to Moist. Like, what do you guys think about that? They've ditched Relating Wave, ditched Quadrant. Can you blame them?
You made a video.
I don't think so.
I made a video about the Quadrant situation. So this is like not answering Johnny's question at all about.
Oh, it's very related. Very related.
The players. I think it's so extremely odd to me how Quadrant just like I don't know. Well, from an outside perspective, it just looks like they like gave up, right? As like a meme, it's just like yeah, we give up, But it's so weird how like obviously they can retain 2 of the players and keep the points. So it's odd that they like allowed them to disband, and I can't think of like a reason. Why that would even happen.
Maybe the players just really didn't want to play another split together, and Quadrant allowed it to happen, which would be
that's crazy, no? Like, the
it's
players don't want
money.
to play together. So unless the situation was so horrible, or it was like CJ said, money, like why would that even happen? Like, if it's money, that makes sense because, well, kind of not really, because they also signed a team immediately right after. But it does make sense that team would be cheaper. But
they signed a smaller team. It would probably be a cheaper team. Smaller names, a bubble team. Well, no, not even a bubble team. It's a team who have made events. So exciting for them. Isn't it Charlie B and Temper's team?
Yes.
I swear they made an event or 2.
Casio.
But I've blanked on it. And Casio as well. Yeah. So known names that have made events in EU. Known names.
It's still a bubble. Like fans. It's not a major
bubbly
contender.
Team. A little bit bubbly.
So if it is money, it's still a crazy thing to happen. Like, it makes sense that Quadrant did it. If it's money related, I get it. But Quadrant was the 7th seed, the 7th team within the Worlds rankings. So they more than likely would have made Worlds. Like, if they just kept that consistent result.
What were they? 7th?
7th.
7th would be not making Worlds currently because EU has
not
6.
Currently, yeah. But
so and probably, it's not it's definitely not like a guarantee that EU would get a 7th spot for Worlds. That would have to be at the expense of NA most likely, because Sam is looking really good to get 1.
That was 6.
They've done very well.
Quadra
Yeah, I
was
did have a
6th,
world
apparently.
spot. At a wild
Oh,
card
they were number
spot.
6. But still, though, like even if they're 6, like with a roster that's not motivated, they're probably expecting to get overtaken by other rosters anyway. So I doubt they were expecting Worlds.
It's still like
Really,
a
really doubt that.
fantastic. You can't get much better. As an org, you couldn't they couldn't have picked up a better team like in a better position right now. Obviously the team was sort of on the downtrend, but I think it's like surely, obviously Lando, the owner, surely like he's got people around him that would have crunched the numbers. Like this is how much it's going to cost for the whole season because when you buy into a team, your goal is to make majors, make the world championships.
Yeah.
And I feel like the cost doesn't increase. There's no like contracts right now, player contracts that I know of that is like, after the first 2 months we're going to jam you up and all of a sudden they can't afford it. Like it's a fixed 12-month contract. This is how much we're paying you every month. It's just weird that they were suddenly like, you know what?
Well,
this is expensive. Like they didn't already allow for that.
I mean, did they
12 months
lose
budget.
sponsors or anything, or did they lose?
Well,
I mean,
maybe.
obviously, a lot of
Possibly.
esports, orgs have been like releasing staff, releasing teams, leaving specific games. So it could be something related to that. They're just like, actually, we need to make a few cuts here and there. Let's take a cheaper team for now. Get some buyouts for 2 of our players. I don't know. It might make sense actually behind the scenes, but we don't know because we don't know the details.
You could have like incentives in the contract, so like their base pay is whatever, and then when they qualified for the major, then next thing you know, they're getting like 1,000 or 2,000 extra a month. Which
true. Yeah.
doesn't seem like a lot, but over the course of a year, it really adds up. If you're paying each player an extra 1,000 a month, 36 grand, it's just like out the window. So if you have certain incentives, streaming incentives, and you're just like, wait, guys, this is getting pretty expensive. If there's like no cap on it, stuff like that. But you would assume that that's looked after even beforehand, right? Before you offer an incentive bonus.
I mean, a lot of orgs are struggling. V1's looking for a merger too. So I think I think a lot of the orgs are having issues. It's like realizing the investment is way too much. They're starting to pull back a little bit.
Well,
yeah, I'm curious. I'm glad they're staying in the scene. I'm glad they've not just gone. All right, bye. Like I'm happy they've picked up a different team. And that's really cool for the new Quadrant lineup to get that exposure to the Quadrant brand and fan base for them. Charlie B,
kind of
Temper,
like
and
Team
Casio.
Liquid, how they sort of had the big, I don't want to say the big failure team, but they sort of had
they did have a big fail team, yeah.
The fruity speed, and then they okay, let's just pick up some young fellas and build our way back up. And,
yeah.
They're back up. So hopefully Quadrant, obviously stick around with this team, and I guess for the rest of the season, and then see what they do. But love to obviously as a racing org, it's good to have those sort of sporty orgs in the scene. I think it was fantastic when we had the football, like when we had Barcelona and PSG and stuff in the scene. That was really cool. Like the merge crossover between real sports or traditional sports and esports.
It really sucks though as well for Wave because he did so well. Like they were 1 series away from qualifying for this LAN as well. They played the tiebreaker against G1, lost it.
He's made every LAN except that
it was pretty much relating Wave against Dorito in that series. They just went off. It was a great series to watch. But yeah, Wave played so well. Everybody's historically been calling him a guy who chokes under pressure, but that was max pressure, and he was carrying Ixo and Cash. And if either of Ixo and Cash showed up, they probably would have been a LAN, but they were a bit quiet, so they're not. And now Relating Wave's sub, no team, or no starting team. Astral as well, no starting team. Mark for the 2nd season in a row has been benched after the winter split, which is just insanely unfortunate.
It's actually terrible.
Insanely. They've grabbed Oli, which, again, G1, I can't really blame them because Oli's probably an upgrade for Mark, like as an individual. And they didn't. It's not like Mark was playing unbelievably well. It wasn't like the Relating Wave situation where he, played a blinder of a series. They're like, all right, enough of you, bye. Like, yeah, Mark was the weakest player in the team, so yeah, I can see what they're doing there. But it just sucks for the guy because that's 2 times in a row. He's probably helped the team get Worlds, and he's not going to play at Worlds. Yeah, very tough.
It's going to be the most heartbreaking thing from a player standpoint. You put so much work
mentally
in, you qualify for everything, and then you don't even get to participate. It's just sucks, man.
At least we may see another Mark by 8 tweet if G1 fail. Oh boy, if G1 fail, you
Get the Mike
better bet.
Wazowski ready.
Oh, he's got it ready. He's got it on draft. Like,
But
oh boy.
like he said though, he was like it's I don't say it's expected, but like he was the weakest player on the team. He was the weakest player on BDS. But like he's still like at what point are we like? Well, this guy clearly knows how to.
Actually,
you know,
on
get
BDS,
teams, get teams to
was he
win.
the weakest? On BDS, he just had the worst French. Like, I don't even know if he was the weakest.
That's
like,
true.
he actually
That's
played
true.
pretty
He was
well. I don't know.
Close
Tough.
with he was close with extra really. Like they sort of traded series. I remember he had some series like he did on G1 as well. He absolutely popped off, scored some big goals. But yeah, as you said, I don't know. It's just unlucky. He's like mentally he has to like my mental would be in the bin. Like if you know, it's one thing to like have an unsuccessful team and then you break up or you make a move, but when you're having one very successful team and one like still pretty successful, making majors and a world spot potentially. That's different. Like these teams have such high expectations. Like they need to make a move if they have one bad event or what they beat FaZe and then they lost their group. So
Man, they just bottled it so hard. By the way, biggest bottle I've seen in a long time. That G1 versus G2 series.
That was I don't even want to talk about. That was rough. That was rough to watch.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, certain G2 analyst fans are not calling it a bottle, but we all know it was like a legendary bottle. Oh my days. What a throw by G1.
The Game 4 incident. Saw it live. Sorry, this is rigged for money or ratings. I don't know.
By no means was that a throw. By no means, of course. But no, we don't need to go into that. There's not really any discussion there. It was a legendary throw. It's gone down in history. And the first outing of a full Spanish team on LAN did not go to plan, unfortunately. I still believe in the Spanish play style on LAN, though. One day it'll work without a choke. But okay, what roster moves have we not talked about here? We not mentioned. Well, we briefly glossed over Ixo to Oxygen, Oli to G1, Cash to Moist. But let's talk about Zen to Vitality. It's happening. We've been waiting for it to happen for a while now. We knew it was coming. Sizen played very well at the Winter Major, but I think everybody still knew he was going to get benched because Redosin and Alpha have just been better for their entire time as teammates. So, yeah, where does this put Vitality? Are they just a lock for LAN again? Are they going to be the best team in Europe? Are they going to be the team to dethrone Karmine Corp? What do you guys think?
Well, they played in actually an off. What was the tourney? The Rocket Bag.
Rising Stars.
Rising Stars Odyssey. So they ended up playing in that, and I think that was like that's like his debut, right, for Vitality. That was the first tourney.
For Vitality, yeah.
That we got to see him in, and they ended up going through and winning the whole thing. They actually beat Moist in the finals as well. But yeah, I mean, obviously they look good. They went through and immediately won their first tournament. But Karmine Corp also lost to Monaco.
Yeah.
And when I went on Wikipedia and I started looking, I did not recognize any of the player names, so I was very confused.
What? You don't recognize the Monaco players? Oh
no,
my goodness!
I don't. Sorry, I'm
sorry. Ignite.
I Ignite. No, not I Ignite.
That's an old Monaco. Extra Ignite.
Remember that team? They were boot camp
together.
That was
promising.
That was extras coming up. Anyway,
yeah, extra is gross.
Okay, that team, Monaco, who did beat Karmine Corp. I'm trying to look him up in case I'm getting it wrong, but I believe it's Ocelon and Stizzy's team. They got rid of EK Salin for someone who I've forgotten. Who's the third?
Oh, okay, Ocelon then I just started lying just to spread misinformation. I definitely know Stizzy and Ocelon.
Is it Dying? Dying, who's also a Spanish player.
That guy, yeah, that sounds right. But I also don't know. I don't know that.
Dying, I wouldn't blame you for not knowing Dying. He's pretty new. But yeah, he's a Spanish player in the come up. Stizzy's another like one of those guys. I think if he lands on the right team, he could be insane. Ocelon, I can't. I was gonna be so upset if you didn't know Ocelon, the one's legend from the Netherlands. Doesn't really play a lot of ones anymore.
But it seems like an incredibly random result, though. Just like because I was looking at the bracket, and I was like,
totally.
I was like, what? Like, how did Karmine Corp lost? This can't be real.
I wanted to ask one other thing because we kind of like talked about the off-season tourneys and their big transfers. So earlier today, the First Touch podcast happened, and they were talking about the most talented players and teams right now. And for once, T-Bates agreed with somebody. He agreed that he agreed with Roll Days that FaZe are right now the most talented team in the game. There's no more talented roster. If you give talented a Google search, it'll tell you having a natural aptitude or skill for something, so just naturally good. And I wanted to pose a question to Chrome, our guest, because he was putting out some takes in the timeline as well when I tweeted about this. Who do you think is the most talented team for you, and what would be your reasons?
Dude, there's so many what do you mean by talented?
That's that's the hardest thing to answer.
I'm trying to stick to the definition of the word, which is naturally gifted. Just to give you an example of there's always athletes that people talk about who are so talented, and if they just put in a little bit of effort, they dominate. If you guys watch tennis or follow tennis at all, you might know Nick Kyrgios, a very talented player, but he's just got no work ethic. He's got no mentality at all. He loses his mind in the middle of matches, completely chokes, completely tilts for no reason, and people are looking at him like, just stop tilting yourself and you'd win. Just practice and you'd win everything. That's he's been called the most talented player by the GOATs of the sport, and he's not won any Grand Slams at all. They just say that's talent if he had work. So that's for me what it is: natural ability for Rocket League. Just for somebody pick some controller, quad flip reset.
Easily FaZe then.
You think easily FaZe most talented?
FaZe. I've worked with Sypical when he was the best in the world. This man was, when I would watch him play, was unreal. However, he lost that motivation to play, which is why he got transferred to FaZe and we picked up Daniel. I don't know how he is on FaZe right now, but if that man cared about the game as much as when I first had him on a team when we were the best for a few months, I don't know how long, but we were considered one of the best. That man was considered the best in the world. And that's because that dude is talented.
He was, yeah.
He came out of nowhere in a span of 3 months from being a no-name to being an RLRS. So and then proceeded to make RLCS, and then the following season made top 2 and made it to Madrid. So, and then Miss is another example. He was a no-name, came out of nowhere, played with the Peeps, won a DreamHack, and then made Madrid. And then same thing with him. He's been on a bunch of different rosters, formed Envy with Atomic and Turbo, and they were dominating at 1.2. So. And then First Killer, I mean, that dude's been a freak since 2016 when he was 12 years old, dominating ones.
Since him and Rapid.
Yeah.
I still remember that duo.
That dude's been a menace for the longest time, and now he's literally got his own team, and he's putting up freakish numbers. So, and I know as a collective, I don't know. I just don't think as a collective they figured it out yet, and when they do, I think they've been putting in the work now, and it's just why they've won those past 2 events and got top 2 at the major.
But what do you think about newer players, more recent, younger players who have came out and gotten to that level or better, in some cases faster? Do you not think that means that they just have to be more talented if they're just doing the same, getting literally better at the game but quicker? Does that imply more talent to you, or do you not think so?
I mean, it depends on the region, right? Seiko's a prime example. He did that in EU with Endpoint, but I feel like he can only do that in EU. You wouldn't be able to do that in NA. I just don't see that. And then when he got to LAN, he didn't perform. With that team, which is why I joined BDS. I think Zen's a prime example. He's going to be that type of player where he's going to come in and just dominate. And it just comes down to Alpha and Radosin to enable him. Who else? Daniel. I think Daniel's another prime example. He just naturally talented. He needs to find that, that breakthrough to win an event, and that confidence in himself that he knows he can win. Because that's his biggest flaw right now.
I think with talent, the hard thing, right, when you look at regular sports, is that you always have sort of recency bias towards the newer, the players coming in right now. You don't talk about, if you're talking about the most talented basketballers, you're not pulling up, obviously it's a smaller time frame, but you're not pulling up guys from the 80s or 70s or something, you know what I mean? Because it's sort of it's a different era. And I feel like it's kind of the same with Rocket League right now. It's hard to look at Mist as one of the top talents because he's been around for so long, and it's not the new up and coming kids that are going nuts. Whereas I guess back then, he was the guy that was talented up and comer, or a Sypical or something like that. I just think it's hard to, do you know what I mean? It's hard to look back at the players that have been around long, that have the longevity, because there's these new guys that are coming up, they're hitting quad flip resets. This guy's more talented than this guy that was around back then. But back then, he was that talented guy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean, because it's like speculating what if Sypical and Mist and First Killer were younger and they were right now,
Hmm.
debuting with their natural ability in the current Rocket League
Yeah,
climate, with their natural talent in the current Rocket League climate, have had them even higher than current, top talents that have just
because it's a
immediately
different
ascended
game.
out of
Yeah.
nowhere because the game has changed. I'm hesitant to say that they would because I feel like that's too speculative for me. I like to stick to, what we know, and that is that, those players they did certain things like Mist and Sypical. They did pretty great things. Sypical for a while was best in NA, one of the best in the world. First Killer when he debuted was probably top 2 in NA. Most talent probably like top 2 talents in NA, maybe top 2 world when he debuted. But for me, I think that the current talents are just clear. Like I think the more recent players are just clear in terms of talent. Players like Zen, Rawas, Naupo, Daniel, Yan, even TRK. I was tweeting out earlier. That's like the 6 names that immediately jumped to my mind as like just more talented than anyone on FaZe, in my opinion. Just because I think have reached a higher level of the game much faster. I think that First Killer is an example of someone who he had very high natural talent. Like I said, when he debuted, he's like probably top 2 natural talent at the time, and then he improved, kept improving. Got experience and how to play under pressure,
I mean,
experience and how to play as a
I
team.
don't know. I feel like that's also subjective. You got to factor in. First Killer came into the scene with I think Wonder and Kronovi, right? Like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and then they got
He's not coming into the scene with an Alpha and a Radosin or like a Vatira, and he's not coming out with like the
no,
best
but
players
I
right
said
away.
when First Killer came in the scene, he was a top talent in NA, like
No, he
him
wasn't. The
and
thing is, he wasn't
Justin.
a
I
top
think he was.
talent in it because of his team.
No, but I think he was. I think he was the top talent when he debuted. So First Killer was the most talented player in NARLCS when he debuted. No one is more talented than him. Because remember, I'm sticking to the definition of talent, which is naturally, good at the game. Not someone who's been in the league for 3 years and is now like, improved like in that context. Of course, you need to learn. If you're a talented player, you don't just jump in RLCS and kill it in the first series. You need to like learn how to play in that environment under that pressure. You need to learn how to be a teammate. You need to learn what kind of system your team wants to play with. And First Killer's like done all that, built a team around him, and now he's like looking better than ever. I think he's a better, more impactful player than any of the talented player I mentioned. But I think that there are more talented players, and we stick to the actual like definition. But that's why I think the argument is on the definition, not about the players. I think First Killer was the most talented player when he debuted, but since then he's been surpassed by Daniel regionally. But honestly, past that, I don't think anyone in North America has been more talented than First Killer. Only Daniel, I think in NA.
I think
I think
the
that's it.
hardest thing is actually like differentiating like what talent actually is, because you're talking about like this natural affinity of just like being good, right? Like like people would say, a lot of people would say that like Aqua was like untapped talent, like he didn't take full advantage because he played so much basketball and stuff like that. But Aqua himself, like I know he sat there and grinded free play for 8,000 hours. So like the reason he got all those mechanics is because he put in so much time and effort to actually make that happen. So how do you even
that's
get
a great
the
point.
Scale of like has Zen done that? Has Rawaz done that? Like how much time have they put in?
This is why I would propose an answer to that, because I thought about this. Does it count as talent if somebody sits in free play for 300 hours past due
by the
constantly?
definition, no.
But well, actually, maybe yes, because talent isn't only like how good someone is like the first time they pick up a controller. That's part of it, but it's also like how how receptive are they to practice? Because if I practiced that many hours of free play, wouldn't matter how old I am, wouldn't matter like what stage of like playing Rocket League, it would literally make no difference. I would just hit a ceiling where the learning would not make any progress. Whereas these players who I think have a natural affinity to learning the game, natural ability for the game, are just the ceiling is so much higher. They just keep on getting better and better very, very quickly. So I think that is talent in my opinion. Like when you can just be receptive faster, you can learn faster. That comes from talent.
I just
But
think, sorry, voice crack.
there is a work ethic like element to it. Like
I just think
it's a
it
gray
is
area.
something that's actually impossible to measure. So the argument
It's
is like,
perfect Johnny Boy T-Bates like argument.
It
It's
is,
like,
it is.
It's like
perfect,
who's
isn't it?
the
These
smartest
two-
Rocket League
These two
player?
would go back and forth for 4 hours on this thing, and everybody else
Who's
is
the
like,
smartest?
"How are you getting anywhere with this?"
Who's
Like,
aggressive?
But no, do you not think it's talent if you learn
Defensive.
quickly? I'm basically saying if you learn quickly, it's
Yes,
talent.
100%.
That's
That's
what I
my
think. Talent is
Yeah.
learning
one thing on
quickly.
talent.
sure, but
Being good naturally
it's
is
hard,
also
so it's
about
hard to
learning
judge
quickly.
that. Yeah.
But like if somebody like is a very very quick learner, then they finally get into the league and they play 5 hours past 2. That's going to hold them back. Like of course we have to acknowledge that they've got a poor work ethic. Maybe they're terrible to work with. Maybe they're just a nightmare of a teammate, and that affects their results negatively. So you can't just look at bad results and say that player's not talented because his results are poor. That player's talented because he's winning. Not that simple in my opinion. Like I don't think currently First Killer or Vatira are top 5 in the world for pure talent, but I think Vatira's mental plus his natural ability for the game plus his work ethic has him like being the best player. And First Killer for me is the second best player, partly because of his natural talent, but also partly because he is just he's built a team around him that plays the way he wants to play, and it is working. They've finally like put all the pieces together. So I don't know. That's just where I'm at with it. I think
The hard thing is
they're up
is
there. They're
that-
probably both top 10, not for me top 5.
the hard thing is you sort of like naturally put people like lower if they're also like hard workers, like like a Vatira, like he's because he's got such a good mindset and a like a work ethic as well. You nearly go, well, he's not as like what I mean. You almost put him down a little
You
bit.
take something
in
away from him,
talent.
so you're like, you can't have it all.
Yeah.
You can't
Well,
have
not,
everything.
not just that, but it's like,
He
well,
can't
he
be that
also does
perfect.
that, so maybe that's why he's so good. It's not just his talent. Whereas other people, you're like, imagine if he had the work ethic, like he'd be even better
Yeah.
than Vatira. But it's hard to measure that. You don't
Yeah.
really know. So as you said, it's like it's a very up in the air, but it's fun
It's
to think
subjective.
about.
It's very
It is
subjective. But I'm
massively.
putting my opinion out there, and I think it's a pretty fair. I hear Chrome's opinion. I think it's a pretty fair opinion as well. But when I tweeted this earlier, this topic, it was like black and white. Like I would, anything I tweeted, half the replies would be like, "Yeah, on board, based, yeah, genius," and then the other ones were like, "You're the dumbest person alive." Like there was no in between. Like it's just a very like some people are basically FK stands and some people aren't. 'Cause it did kind of turn into like discussing First Killer, because I didn't put his team in my top 5 talented teams, and I didn't put him in my top 5 talented players, which turned out to be the hottest take, I suppose. But yeah, that I think it's very
It's
interesting
tough,
to
isn't
discuss.
it? Like you can.
It is subjective.
If people say like, "Oh, this is," what's that?
I think First Killer's top 5 talent.
It's
Do you-
all. It's
do
just
you
like
think First Killer is
He's
more talented?
consistently
Subjective.
progressing individually every single
okay,
time I watch him play.
Is he more talented than Zen?
Oh, not right now, no.
Is he more
Zen-
talented? Well, is he more talented than Daniel?
You can argue. You can argue.
That First Killer's more talented than Daniel.
If you're
Okay,
going based off pure mechanics,
just
First
talent,
Killer
just
could
talent.
well, talent is
what is
mechanics,
talent.
right?
It's hard.
Daniel's more
If
mechanical
you're
than
talking
First
He's
about
sort
Killer.
of
talent,
mechanic.
like
Daniel's
the duration to get that good, First Killer did the same thing as them.
no. Well, I
Yes,
think
he did.
Talent.
Daniel and Zen are both better than First Killer mechanically for a start. Like they're definitely a level above him mechanically, I think. But First Killer's better at other
If
things.
you're rating them
better player.
based off one's ability, yeah, I want to say First Killer's better, but in terms of talent, he could do everything they can.
Is talent
No,
like how
he
quickly
can't
you
do
pick up
everything they
positioning?
can.
I
he
think
can't.
he can. I think
No,
he
he
can.
can't. He can't. No,
I've seen
Daniel
some
and
great
Zen
things from
will
First
be.
Killer.
Yeah, I have as well. I think First Killer is like probably a top 10 like mechanical player, but he's not. I think Daniel and Zen are better mechanically. I think like you can't say that he can do everything they can when he can't do everything they can. Like he's just not as mechanical as them. I
Jack
think.
thinks that Dan is not more mechanical than First. He's jumped on Chrome's side.
Nah, Daniel's more
No,
mechanical.
I
I'm sorry, he is.
think Zen's incredibly. I think he's probably the most mechanical player right now, Zen. And then Dan is up
Yeah,
there
probably.
too. Don't get me wrong, but you're slating First Killer. I think First Killer is right up there. I just don't think he shows it right now as much as Zen and Dan does, because he's more fit into threes. But he's up there. Like First Killer can
No,
do
yeah,
a
he's
lot
like,
of the
could you
stuff
say the
that-
same about?
This is the crazy thing. I put him like top 10, but not top 5. People are like, "This is ludicrous. How could you
I
put him
don't know,
like
man.
bottom 100?" I'm like, bro, I have him like just outside looking in, like not far
Yeah, but
off.
the
but-
thing is, you rate Ruas that high, and like to me, Ruas got to show me a little bit more. Like Ruas is good, but he's not. I don't
give
think he's-
him a chance. Give him a chance. That guy
Talent-wise,
is
he's not as good as
talent.
FK in my opinion.
Talent. I think
I think
Ruas
the
is
best
better
way to
than
judge
talent.
if
Ruas
they're
is good,
talented.
yeah, I do agree.
I think the
I think
best
he's more
way to judge
talented
if
than
they're
FK. More talented.
That's
Right, look,
subjective.
more.
You know?
I've got an idea, boys. I've got an idea. If it's the best way to judge it, because as someone said in chat, it's about like hand-eye coordination, spatial awareness. We need to put them into rigorous testing that's not Rocket League based, but like some IQ testing, like some reaction-based testing where you click the buttons and stuff, and just see who's more, naturally gifted in that department.
IQ tests would be phenomenal, by the way, just as a passing thought. How cool would it be?
Yeah.
How good content would that be at LAN where all the pros have to do an IQ test?
Let's go
being
range
the
of
dumbest
sports.
pro though. People would just rag on that guy for
Okay,
years.
not pros. Casters IQ test. Let's
do maths tests, like we want to do sports, like penalty shootout, 3-point shootout, and then like just get a range of like different stuff and just see who's more naturally gifted in
who's more talented
departments.
human.
Make them play a game of horse. There you go. There's a content video for you guys.
Yeah, it's perfect.
So
the most talented players play a game of horse.
The problem with like the talent as well, because as we said, like people say, "Oh, this is a terrible word to use," but it's used in literally every sport. And you watch like junior sport as well, you can see like, "Wow, that kid's talented." Like, but the problem with talent is not as you said, it is about your ability to like how receptive or responsive you are to practice. But not every kid is doing the same practice. That kid that's talented might be because he's shooting the ball with his dad or something every day after school. Whereas the other kid will be like, well, he's not as good, might not be doing that. Like, or you don't, you need every single person to like nearly have the same training regime and the same program to see who is, responding to it more. Because talent, as we said, it's like that hard work beats talent. But a lot of the talented people are talented because they worked hard. Some of them are naturally born because their parents were good at something like that, or they were a sportsman, or there's so many things that go along. It's so hard, but it's such a good discussion because you can never get the right answer.
You know what this reminds me of? So this whole like backlash to this discussion and knee-jerk reactions that this discussion's caused reminded me of like how quickly Rocket League players throughout all ranks will dismiss their ability at winning a kickoff, winning a 50-50. Basically winning any aspect of Rocket League that's not cool. Oh, I'm so bad at air dribble bumps, or I would be really good. But they're like, oh, but I'm really mechanical. Like, if you ever tell a Rocket League fan that their favorite player is not as mechanical as they think they are, they'll be mega offended. But if you say, oh, he's got terrible kickoffs, they'll be like, yeah, they lose all their games because they got bad kickoffs. Like, it reminds me of that. I'm like, yeah, that player that you think is like top 2 talent, I think he's like maybe top 7 talent. They're like, how dare you? How dare you? But if I tell you like, no, he's just getting held back by his teammates, held back by his like, work ethic, people will be much more receptive to that idea because that is allowing them to cope for their favorite player not winning as much as they think they should. So I don't know, talent for some reason, people are really offended when I say, oh, that player I think is a little bit less talented than you think they are, naturally. But I'm telling you, to be I think First Killer's number 2 player in the world, he has to be, if I've got him like number 7 or 8 for talent, he has to be so good at working hard. He's got to be so good at like, putting together the best team for himself, being a good team player, being smart, being composed. He's got to be good at other things, right? But nobody wants to hear that. They just want to hear, oh yeah, he's just naturally talented.
So what's the criteria we're going by now?
I
guess that's just the cool way.
I think we can agree, regardless of criteria. I think Zen is the most talented player in the world. Like, for him to have just picked the game up, not just picked the game up, but like picked the 3v3. He's not even playing like RLCS, but he's just he seems to just that how quickly he picks like things up, how to like throw him in a new environment, like he'll make it work, which is what he's obviously he hasn't hasn't played in the RLCS yet, but just seeing what he's already done for Vitality, seeing how he just picks up like 1v1s and then just like, okay, this is how we do it. Okay, that this is where I need a position. Like just how quickly
exactly what I mean. He learned one so fast. I'm like, that's talent right there. How did he get that good?
Yeah, that is pretty nuts.
That's talent.
The ones is the scariest thing to me because I don't ever touch that playlist. So seeing him immediately just being thrown into ones and just being like, oh well, this is actually really easy, and just like defeating all the top players. That's a very good argument for that. I do want to switch the topic here because we are going to close out pretty soon here. But since we're talking about Zen, I just have one question for all 3 of you. If Vitality go through this split and they don't win a single regional, is it considered a failure for Vitality?
No.
Failure might be a harsh word, but I think you get the idea.
No. I don't think so.
I don't think just by default that's a failure. No, I would say no, not default a failure. It would depend on other things, but
they're
probably expecting to win one.
they could not win a regional and then go and come top two at the major or win the major. I think if they don't qualify for the major, that is definitely a failure. Not only all the players will consider that a failure, the org will consider it a failure. The whole thing. So
imagine you could not win
major.
and still you could win the split. You could be first seed without winning a major if you just come second 3 times and different teams beat you. You could still be top seed. They'd be delighted with that, I reckon. But yeah,
I don't even think they need top seed to be happy. I just think as long as they make the major and they're there and they're competitive, like that's all you need for the first split with this guy.
Yeah.
Like as you said, they could go 5 seed to the major and win the whole thing. They don't have to dominate.
This is the weird one because it's so close to the World Championship. I mean, Chrome, what do you think about spring last season and spring any tournament like this, the major event that's closest to Worlds? Like a lot of teams just focus on Worlds. So they say. What do you think about that? Does doing badly in spring matter that much?
I think Double Lim is very Mickey in comparison to every other format we've ever had. And I wouldn't read too much into it. I mean, BDS completely bombed their way out of Springland, losing to Secret and KCP. And you can argue, maybe it's just the format. And then they went on to win Worlds when, what was it, Double Lim groups into
it was Double Lim groups into Single Lim, yeah. So technically more brutal, but yeah.
I just think Double Lim to qualify for a major is more brutal than.
Oh, definitely. I don't like Double Lim as a qualifier at all. That's a passing statement. Yeah, not a good qualifier format, in my opinion. But it's very entertaining, very fun to watch, and it's got a lot of history with Rocket League, so it's got benefits for sure, I would say.
No, I don't think it will affect someone's mental going into Worlds, because Worlds, there's a lot of games to be played. Probably all best of 7, I would assume. Probably same format. I'd assume. I don't know the specifics, but at the end of the day, losing Spring Major or not even making Spring Major, if you're going to Worlds, it's still the biggest deal.
Definitely hurt BDS going into Worlds. They were like,
if Vitality doesn't make it, it's a failure.
Oh yeah.
And again, they got
the major.
They don't make the major. But
then again, wait. What happened to Sizen? Is he still here?
They got their 4-man roster. They'll just sub in Sizen for.
They're going to 4-man. They've been cooking that one for a bit.
Is he still on the roster?
I think he's a sub.
He's still signed.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, yeah, I'd assume he's the sub.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's he'll be right there. There's a lot of pressure on that team, but I think the way that they performed this split, like the players knowing that there's going to be a move no matter how well they do, was pretty good anyway. So I think they'll handle the pressure pretty well. It'll mainly be how does Zen handle it, because obviously we saw the show match situation, Johnny, when he lost his streak and blew up pretty quickly. Like I
think it's good for him that he lost his streak. I think that's really good because now he experienced like that, crazy streak he was on. Must have felt so bad when he lost, like in Game 7. He must have felt so bad. So it's good that he's felt that and experienced it, because now he's probably learned a lot from that, and he can use that in RLCS to bounce back from other defeats. Yeah, chat's going crazy because Optic have swept Matey, so I'm going to need to change my Matey vouch to Optic for RLCS. Swept them out of the Gamers 8 qualifiers. I think that's probably a bit unlucky for both those teams that they've ran into each other, because they've actually got ones players, so the 1v1 becomes a part of the next stage of the tournament. So unfortunate that they had to face each other, but congrats to Optic. They've made it into the next day.
I'd love to know the correlation between pre/off-season tournament results and then first regional results of RLCS, and see if it's a negative correlation to performance.
Direct.
That'd be an interesting one, because we do see it a lot. Teams that perform in the off-season then don't exactly show up, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
All right, I think that's going to wrap it up for Chalkcast number 36. We appreciate you guys watching and listening, as always. If you guys miss any part of the podcast, it's going to be on Spotify, it's going to be on YouTube, and it's also going to be on Apple Podcasts, which the links will be tweeted out after the show, or when they get uploaded. So Twitter account @Chalkcast if you guys want to follow there. But that's all. We appreciate you guys watching, and we hope you enjoyed.
And special announcement maybe next week. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. See you next week.
All right, see ya.